Welcome to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast with your host, Brandon Seigel. I'm a published author, speaker, entrepreneur, and private practice strategist dedicated to transforming the way that healthcare functions. This podcast is all about empowering you to create the change you want to see. Let's dive in. Welcome back to this episode of the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. Today, we're talking about understanding how to measure your private practice through, you got it, quantitative and qualitative KPIs. It's no joke. I'm a big believer that we look at both. And what you're going to find is sometimes we are quantifying our qualitative KPIs. See, a lot of us get lost and we find that anything with a number is quantitative KPIs. But the realization that I've had over the years is even when I have a qualitative KPI, I have to quantify what the value is of that qualitative KPI. So let's jump in. Let's talk about it. Let's define some of the different categories. And obviously there's overlap. So I don't want you to think that, Brandon, this sounds pretty similar. Yes, it does. And so just recognize with a grain of salt, these are similar. And at the end of the day, you're going to find the KPIs that are meaningful to your practice. But when we look at quantifiable, quantitative KPIs, our quantitative KPIs is a measurable characteristic, really anything that involves numbers. This is the most common type of KPI and covers many things. It could be the number of appointments, the number of evals, the number of years of average retention. Now, just because it's quantitative does not mean that it doesn't have qualitative value. But when I start to look at qualitative KPIs, I'm measuring characteristics. So now I'm measuring patient satisfaction, employee satisfaction. That's where I start to look at what is the qualitative KPIs that I'm looking at. So I may put a quantitative KPI in relationship to qualitative. So what is a qualitative outcome? Employee retention. I may say, let's measure qualitatively the average tenure each employee has at my organization. So I've now quantified what is a qualitative KPI to my organization. Whereas profit and loss. So the net profit KPI, to me, that's a quantitative KPI. Qualitatively, you may find value in it, but at the end of the day, it's a numbers thing. So I set a bar, I set a measure, but we're basically quantifying, what is the profitability, what's our gross revenue, average gross gross expense, those different things. So I would put that more in the quantitative budget KPI versus the qualitative. Then we look at things like an operational KPI. Now, again, an operational KPI may still have a quantitative measurement or might be within qualitative, but we're focusing it more now because we're saying, hey, we're going to categorize all of our operational KPIs. So when I'm looking at operational KPIs, I'm looking at evaluating the efficiency of its day-to-day operations within your private practice. These are KPIs that help you identify which strategies are effective. So I may say that our arrival rate of patients each day, that is a operational KPI. Now, operationally, we are looking for this measure of a 94% arrival rate each day, as an example. Another category we may use is a strategic KPI. With a strategic KPI, we're monitoring progress. We're looking at the trends related to a destination and focusing on more long-term, big picture goals within an organization. So a strategic KPI might be, we want to open up 15 locations year over year for the next 5 years. So did we open up 15 locations each year over year? New locations, that might be a strategic KPI. A leading KPI is measuring performance before the business or process follows a pattern or trend. So this can be used for future prediction, if that makes sense. And then a lagging KPI is measuring a pattern or trend that previously, such as annual sales for the previous year. So a lagging KPI might be, we want 20% improvement over last year's revenue. That could be a lagging KPI. A leading KPI might be leading a new trend that we have no data on. So we're setting a leading goal of the following for this new clinic. We have no measurement before, etc. We're not measuring over something else. So we discussed briefly quantitative, qualitative, operational, strategic, leading, and lagging KPIs. These are all part of our key performance indicator evaluation. So I have a question for you. How do you measure your practice's function? How do you measure the function of your practice? So this is what's interesting is when we talk about function, function is the way that something acts, right? It's the way that something operates. So we have a quantitative function. So quantitatively, how do I measure your function? Cash flow. At the end of the day, the function of your practice is a direct byproduct of money in versus money out. It's how we run our taxes. It's how we measure sustainability. So quantitatively, the first measurement of your practice's function is your cash flow. Now, qualitative function, we could have many different qualitative functions, but qualitative function is what's, in my opinion, the first thing is like, what is the number one objective of your organization? So qualitatively, we are in the business of getting people well. How do we measure well? We measure well by discharge based on outcome goal-oriented completion. So then that might be your qualitative, one of your qualitative functions that you look at. How are we measuring the function qualitatively? And then we have functional capacity. So when we talk about functional capacity, we're talking about what our capability is. We have the capability to deliver 3,865 appointments a day across 36 different clinics. That is our functional capacity. That is always evolving, changing, growing, decreasing, the whole bit. So these are all things that we want to look at when we're measuring our practice's function through that lens of quantitative, qualitative, functional capacity. So every employee, I look at this too. I look at what is their quantitative function. How many appointments can they schedule? How many can they deliver? What does that look like? I look at their qualitative function. What are they trying to get done at the end of the day? What is meaningful? What does qualitative work mean to them? And how do we measure their qualitative output? What is their functional capacity? What are they able to do at what rate before burnout? Plain and simple. So when we measure your practice's function, we're going to define it in Brandon's terms. So again, we measured it in one way. I'm going to measure it in Brandon's terms. So quantitatively, the way that something functions from a numbers perspective, the visit is worth $134.50. That is how that visit quantitatively functions. Qualitatively, the way something functions from a quality perspective, the evaluation was so thorough and exacting that the patient signed up for all the protocols recommended. That is a qualitative function of the evaluation, plain and simple. It did the job. What's the job of the evaluation? Find out what is wrong, what is needed, what is recommended, and creating buy-in to get it done with the patient. There's a practice, MD practice that I know, and their evaluations are so thorough that when you meet, you're meeting in multiple meetings to ensure you understand each category of recommendation, and then the budget and the accomplishment and the expectation in correlation to the goals that you came in for. Now, with functional capacity in Brandon's terms, it is the perspective on capability. So your office has the capability to see 25 patient appointments per day. That is the capability. So we are measuring the functional capacity, the capability of each person, each clinic, each room. What is the capability per square foot? What is the capability per full-time equivalent employee? And the capability versus delivery, what is that ratio? That's maybe a quantitative measure that we take. So, I have a question for you. How do you win a game from a functional viewpoint? So if we were to play a game, and let's say we're going to play Risk. I don't know if you remember that board game, but that board game always took like 10 hours. But if we were going to play Risk, let's go play some Risk. How would you win that game functionally? What is the function of how you win the game now? Some of you are like, oh, I move the pieces and I just win. No, there's 3 things. Those 3 things are really simple. And you're going to be like, Brandon, what are we learning here? But it's really important. 1, be strategic. Every move has a reaction. Be strategic. If I'm going to invade a territory, I better be strategic. When I am not strategic, I lose. The next, the most important, be adaptable. Be adaptable. That person comes in and makes a change. I need to adapt to a new thing. I cannot get stuck in my rut. So I'm going to give you an example. Insurance cuts their reimbursement. You got to be strategic. You got to be adaptable. Here's the third one. Play the game. This is a game. Don't take yourself so seriously. Play the game. Life only has so many units of achievement. We need to play the game. Work is a game. Be strategic, be adaptable, play the game. Functionally, that's how we win. That's how we compete at the next level in this. Our KPIs, they're scoreboards. They're allowing us to show, are we winning? Are we losing? Where are we at? When we look at a baseball game, we don't just look at the scoreboard. Some of you may, but I don't. I look at so many different KPIs. What's the first KPI I look at? Hits. So runs, hits. So I look at who wins, who scored more runs, who had more hits in ratio to runs, how many walks, how many strikeouts, what were the defensive plays, what is the batting average for each person, what's the on-base percentage, lots of things. So imagine your private practice as a board game, as a baseball game, as a basketball game, whatever that may be. I want you to recognize functionally that you need to be strategic, you need to be adaptable, you need to play the game, and you have to understand what is a quantitative measure, a qualitative measure, and your capacity to achieve greatness. For the past 20 years, I've had the privilege of helping pediatric occupational, physical, and speech therapists redefine the way that their business functions and helping them tap into their entrepreneurial spirit. In recent years, I recognized a deficit, which was bringing private practice owners together with the vision of allowing them to connect, learn, and grow. And Growth Code Conference was born. From sunrise to sunset, we offer an opportunity for pediatric, occupational, physical, speech therapy private practice leaders and owners to connect, collaborate, learn, grow. From yoga to breakfast to lunch to coffee carts and more. We take you to another world where you are inspired, where you feel empowered, and where you are able to grow to the next level so that we all can change the world one child at a time. So when we look at functional change, we're referring to any modification or transformation within a specific function or department of your organization. This can include change of processes, roles, responsibilities, systems, functional areas to improve efficiency, effectiveness, and that it aligns with strategic goals. So examples may include, for finance, we're implementing new accounting software. We're restructuring budget processes. Marketing, we're implementing a new website. We're launching a new campaign. We got a drip campaign. All different things. Human resources, we're introducing a new human resources evaluation. These are all functional changes, operations, upgrading. The world is changing. Your practice needs to change. What's the most common functional change right now? AI. Plain and simple. In life, how many people now do different things utilizing AI? Whether it's meaningful, purposeful. The other day, my wife and daughter showed me what my dog would look like as a person. The weirdest thing I've ever seen. It was an angry little redheaded girl, but okay. They embodied with AI my dog's personality into what she would look like as a human. Now, again, functional change. The only way to overcome the obstacles in our practice is through functional change, and we measure KPIs to see how the function is evolving. So here are some examples of quantitative KPIs. Net profitability, percentage of total people cost from total revenue generated. And I call it total people expense, TPE. I also look at the percentage of total facility expense from total revenue generated. We look at patient acquisition cost. We look at patient lifetime value. We look at employee acquisition cost, employee lifetime value, average revenue per patient per appointment, average expense per patient per appointment. These are just an example. I think I named 10 little KPIs. Why are they crucial? Because they measure the way that we quantify financial sustainability in our business. They are quantifiably functioning our ability to survive and sustain. No money, no honey. It's as simple as that. Now, when we shift to qualitative KPIs, here are some examples of KPIs that I would categorize personally as qualitative. Percentage of patients that discharge based on outcomes met. That's a KPI that measures our qualitative action. Percentage of billing claims approved on first pass and paid. That means qualitatively we did something right with the way that we submitted our billing. Our average employee retention. That is a qualitative KPI. Our patient satisfaction scores, that is a qualitative KPI. Our percentage of word of mouth referrals, qualitative KPI. Number of organic 5-star reviews on Google each month, that is a qualitative KPI. Percentage of patients engaged and completion of their plan of care. That is a qualitative KPI. And drum roll, please, the last one. Percentage of patients that follow through on home exercise programs. That's qualitative. When I give someone homework, if they don't do it, I just wasted time creating that homework. So when you give home activity programs, home exercise programs, your first question is, do you want one? Are you going to follow through with it? And at what level of intensity do you want your home program assessed? See, the mistake you make is you say, I'm going to give everyone this home exercise program. If they make it, they make it. If they don't, they don't. It has no meaning. So guess what? All you ortho PTs, I'm your worst nightmare. Your home exercise activity programs have a 0% completion for me, because I don't feel capable to accomplish them. My body does not follow through with the exercises you've given me. They're too steep of a gradient. So I nod my head and I tell you that I'm going to do it, and I don't. So if you actually measure at the end of the day, my completion, 0%. Now you could say that's qualitatively flunk on Brandon, but I would say, what if you were able to get me to complete one thing consistently? Would that be more valuable than 0% of what you're doing? Looking at the qualitative engagement. It does you no good to assign something I'm not going to follow through with, but I feel bad. So I'd rather you just ask me, what is the level? And I actually did have one physical therapist, shout out, cash pay physical therapist, Tampa, Florida. You know who you're talking about. You asked me, you said, are you going to follow through? And I said, no. You said, what if I give you the easiest one possible? I said, okay, the easiest one possible. And then I said, make me do it 20 times before I leave. And I did. And then I actually did complete his home activity program. But there was an engagement and a clear communication that made it work. So I want us to build a KPI dashboard. A KPI dashboard is a simple visual display of the most important information that decision makers need to help achieve objectives. These are visual representations. You can do it in a ton of different platforms, softwares, whatever. But in that KPI dashboard, it's best considered from an operational and strategic perspective. It's a dashboard that allows you to see outputs, colors, red, black, whatever. And I say it this way. If I removed your entire fuel dashboard in your car, would you run out of fuel? Most likely. And anyone that says they won't just means that you'd be filling up every day to make sure you don't, because you'd have no gauge of where you're at. We need to measure our qualitative, quantitative, and functional capacity for our KPIs. And when we're doing that, keep your dashboard to a single screen or page. Only include the most critical, insightful KPIs. So you could have a daily board that flips to a weekly analysis board, that flips to a monthly board, that then flips to a quarterly board, in which all those boards show up when relevant to you. Only include those critical ones. Choose an appropriate and accessible way to display it. Make the dashboard look easy. Make it have pictures and colors and gauges and all that, and create measurables that are meaningful to those utilizing the dashboard. I show up and it shows me 25 appointments scheduled. 22 have shown up as arrival potential. 5 are being scheduled to see if they can get fit in same day. How many reports are being due today? What my time of break and time of opportunity for documentation is from a KPA standpoint, any outstanding notes, evals, etc. Clean, simple. It's possible. Make it happen. So the reason why KPIs are important, at the end of the day, it helps make key business decisions. It's how we are able to gamify rewarding our team members. And it helps us outline the outliers that are impacting our business in a positive or negative way. So we've had 3 months of month-over-month growth. What is the outlier that contributed to it? We hired 5 new employees 3 months before, and the caseloads were developed. Simple. So here's a case study, and it was a speech therapy clinic. And this small pediatric speech language pathology practice in the U.S. sought to enhance its service delivery and business operations. The practice was facing challenges like client retention, therapist efficiency, parent satisfaction. All 3 were down. To address these 3 things, again, client retention, therapist efficiency, parent satisfaction, the practice implemented a mixed method approach using qualitative and quantitative KPIs to drive improvements. So this was what the quantitative KPI said. The practice tracked measurable metrics to assess operational efficiency and clinical outcomes. So the first thing we decided to measure was our session attendance rate. We targeted a 90% attendance with initial data showing 75% due to scheduling conflicts. By introducing flexible scheduling and reminder systems, attendance improved to 88% within 6 months. Now, we didn't hit 90%, but I want to be clear, 75 to 88%, that's a huge improvement in 6 months. Boom, that was step 1. The next one, therapy progress metrics. We use standardized tools like the clinical evaluation of language fundamentals, the SELF, to measure client progress. 80% of clients showed measurable improvement, at least a 10% score increase after 12 weeks, up from 65%. Now, in both cases, you could measure these as qualitative benefits, but I'm just showing you the quantifiable impact of them. Now, the third one, definitely quantifiable. revenue per therapist. We aimed for a 15% increase. What we were able to do was we streamlined the billing processes, increased session capacity. We resulted in a 12% revenue boost. 12% is still very good. That's pretty big if I could increase 12% per each therapist. So on a qualitative standpoint, this is where we focused more on what we classified as qualitative. Parent satisfaction surveys. We conducted semi-structured interviews with 20 parents. The themes were therapist empathy, communication clarity, and those were the two things that emerged as strengths. But wait times were a concern, and the practice reduced wait times by optimizing appointment scheduling. So our patient satisfactions went up as a result of that. With therapist feedback sessions, we actually looked at monthly focus groups with therapists that revealed burnout risks due to high caseloads. The practice introduced peer supervision, and we reduced caseloads by 10%, improving therapist morale, while productivity actually increased. Child engagement observations. So one of the things we did is we had therapists observe children's engagement during the session. Adjustments like incorporating play-based activities. We actually put kids outside of individual treatment rooms and put them into gym space. We saw 85% of children showed improved participation simply by that, rated by the therapist's descriptive notes. So when we implemented it, the practice collected quantitative data via EMR, QuickBooks, etc., qualitative data from interviews, surveys, focus groups, and observation coded for themes using qualitative data management tools. Our KPIs were aligned with business goals, improving client outcomes, enhancing satisfaction, and ensuring sustainability. And at the end of the day, by looking at all these KPIs, we noticed that client retention rose to 85% due to improved satisfaction and outcomes. The therapist turnover dropped by 50% after addressing burnout. Operational efficiency improved 10% reduction in administrative costs from streamlining our processes, and our patients reported satisfaction scores on a 5-point scale. We increased from 3.8 to 4.5. Pretty incredible. So all we got to do is we got to measure our goal attainment, our goal objectives, understanding our stakeholders, and being able to build an ecosystem that has accountability, showcasing progress, and alignment for everyone involved. Did you know a 2023 Gartner report revealed that businesses use a mix of quantitative and qualitative KPIs to improve operational efficiency by 20%, with 58% of healthcare leaders noting better patient outcomes? That's incredible. I want to say that one more time. So this report from 2023, it revealed that when using a mix of quantitative and qualitative KPIs, we not only improved efficiency, but we also improved outcomes. In the words of Peter Drucker, what gets measured gets managed. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. Please like us, subscribe, comment, share feedback. I want to hear your voice. This is as much for you all, and I invite you to be part of my growth code groups. I invite you to be part of all of the things we're doing to change the way that healthcare is delivered. Together we can thrive, not just survive. Thank you for tuning in to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. I'm incredibly grateful to each and every one of you. Exciting news. We're now available everywhere, from Spotify to Apple Podcasts to YouTube or anywhere you like to listen to your podcasts. So watch, listen, and reach out. If you love this episode, please drop a 5-star review. It truly means the world to me. Are you looking for more ways to elevate your practice? If so, now is your chance. Reach out, go to my website, or email me at brandon@wellnessworksmp.com. And remember, it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.